tonight. We're going to be talking about petitions, specifically how we're going to do this in the middle of a global pandemic. So the first little bit of the presentation will just be some refreshers, or for those who have not done petitions before, just some information about the rules and the ways that we need to collect petitions in order for them to matter or to count and be accepted. And then the second half, we're going to discuss, basically I'm going to open the floor and we're going to talk about just different ways and different ideas that people have to collect petition signatures while we're in this, while COVID-19 is still ravaging this country. So it's a little preview of tonight. So for those who don't know me, my name is Bob Reckline. I am the Southwest PA Regional Political Director for the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. Last year, I was on the Biden's coordinated campaign for Pennsylvania as a Deputy Organizing Director in Western PA. Before that, was with the party working on organizing. And then before that, I was with Connor Lamb's race for the special election. So just a little bit about me. Just a couple of norms for the webinar tonight. Please mute yourself during the presentation. This is just to limit background noise. I get very easily distracted and thrown off, so just want to prevent that. And if you see down at the bottom of the Zoom, there should be under the More section, there should be reactions. There should be the ability to raise your hand if need be, if you have any questions. I did set up a couple question sections throughout the presentation. We'll stop at each section, and if anybody has any questions, we'll go through them. So let's get started. So goals for this presentation tonight are going to be discuss some important dates regarding nominating petitions, rules and best practices to collecting petition signatures. We have a lot of people on this call who have done petitions for many, many years, have great wisdom, and know how to do this year in, year out. We're also going to talk about who can sign and who can circulate. And then we'll discuss ways to collect petition signatures while we're still in this pandemic. So first, right off the bat, a couple of important dates that you need to be aware of. So petitions will start on February 16th. That is the first day that you can collect petition signatures. If someone signs a petition and it's marked, they sign it on the 15th, it's not going to count. So make sure you do not start collecting signatures until the 16th in that time period. The last day to turn in petitions is March 9th. And you will hear me say this over and over again. Highly recommend that you turn your petitions in way before the deadline, just to make sure that you get them in on time. There have been cases where folks are waiting in line outside of the State Department in Harrisburg to turn petitions in, and they close and lock the doors right at 5 p.m. on that day, and people were not able to turn their petitions in. So don't let that happen to you. And then the last day to challenge petitions to remove people off the ballot is March 16th. So those are just the 3 dates to be aware of in regards to petitions. So again, the period for petitions is February 16th through March 9th. The petition process, for those who don't know, is the way in Pennsylvania that candidates get on the ballot for the May primary. To get on the ballot, candidates have to collect signatures from registered Democrats in their election districts. For those who are running for magistrate or school board, you are allowed to cross-file, which is you can submit petition signatures for both Republican and Democrat to be on both ballots, which can be helpful for those types of races. Many of you have heard about Act 77 that was passed last year, gave us vote by mail, which was fantastic. It also did some changes for petitions. The biggest one being circulators are no longer required to notarize their petitions. Before Act 77, when you would circulate a petition for a candidate, before you turned it in, you would have to go to a notary and have them notarize it. That is no longer the case. Now the circulators just need to fill out a statement of circulation on the back that says, I am the one who circulated this and followed the law. Circulators must be registered Democrats from Pennsylvania. Act 77 also changed you don't have to be a resident of the district to circulate. You still do have to be a PA resident in order to circulate.
Bob, can I jump in for a second?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Kevin.
Guys, Kevin Greenberg here. Before I get to, and I want to make the point on this, before I do that, I just want to acknowledge Kathy Bookvar, because we should have probably done that at the beginning. The secretary took a hard one today. She's resigning next week, but she did amazing work over the last 2 years, over many years for us within the party in the last 2 years in office. And I just want to, publicly thank her for the work and commend her for heroic efforts last year. It was just insane and amazing. So the reason I wanted to jump in here to stay on this point is this discussion about being a PA resident. There is some case law going back to a congressional race that Bob was involved in that challenged that provision in federal court, and it was struck down in the last version of the law. It may be true that a non-Pennsylvanian can circulate. It may not be true. You will hear people tell you to do it anyway. Don't. There's no reason to make yourself the face of that litigation. It will cost a lot of money and take a lot of time. But you will hear people in training say that's not effective, that's not true anymore. They might be right. But until we know for sure, don't put yourself in that box. Sorry. But I mean, if somebody who sits in a second training, a Larry Otter training, he'll tell you this isn't right. And so I just want to make sure everybody hears that.
I appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you for jumping in. Please, if something else is, I'm not a lawyer, so I rely on people like Kevin to set it straight as far as the legal stuff. So much appreciated, Kevin. Awesome. So one thing to keep in mind, do not modify or forge signatures. That's a big no-no. If someone makes a mistake, a lot of people start printing their name in the signature box instead of signing. Just have that person strike a single line through and then start anew in another row. That's totally okay.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Travis Marchwinsky, and I'm sorry to jump in here, but I am running for a district justice, so I plan on cross-filing as in the Republican side as well. But the way I'm reading it, I would need a Republican to circulate the Republican petition for me.
Kevin, go ahead.
Well, I would say there's actually an exception to this for those cross-filed positions. So you can still do this as a cross-filer. You're allowed to cross-circulate for cross-filed petitions. Again, this is a change in the law, and so it could be subject to challenge in court. If you have Republicans to circulate for you, let them. If you don't, do it yourself. You should be okay. But again, until these things are tested all the way to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, as we saw numerous times last year, none of this is final.
Hey, I'm sorry. I just have a clarifying question on that. I apologize. Is there a maybe exception there for the candidate or for anybody circulating petitions for that cross-filing candidate?
It is solely for cross-filing races, not for the candidates.
Okay, so like Travis could have a friend that's a Democrat, in theory, circulate Republican petitions. I mean, preferably we'd want him to get a Republican to it just in case.
So my advice to that situation is you get a Democratic friend and a Republican friend and have them both circulate both. And that's a good way to get your 2 or 3 times anyway. But that's the way to cover your bases. You should be okay in Travis's case. But that is the specific cases for magistrate and district judge. Or magistrate and school board, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And thank you, Kevin.
Hello.
Yes.
I have a question going back to, oh gosh, where were we? Oh my God, I even forgot the question. Wait a minute. You know what? I'll come back to it. I'll remember it. Sorry.
Okay, sounds good. No worries. I
have a question.
And guys, if it's a question of law, do me a favor, either hold them or email me. Let Bob finish what this is about, because this is really supposed to be more operational and logistics and field stuff. We're here to deal with. I'm here to sort of just deal with a couple of legal T's, but we got to get to the substance of what Bob's able to talk about and be useful on. And this is a very useful idea. Please.
Thank you. So this is what the nominating petition looks like. As you can see, for each row, first column, the Signer will sign their name. They must sign and print their name as it appears on their voter registration. I go by Bob Reckline, but my voter registration says Robert D. Reckline, so I always sign Robert D. Reckline just to make sure my signature is okay. So second column, they have to print their name. Third column, they put their house number. Fourth column, the street or road. And then the fifth column, this gets a little tricky outside, especially in like Southwestern PA. I have this problem in like Washington and Westmoreland. You have to put the city, borough, or township, not necessarily the mailing address. So here
It's all
in
over the
Westmoreland, there is a township called Unity Township, zone thing, but their mailing address is Greensburg. So when people do their petitions, it comes up as they'll put Greensburg City Unity. Kevin, is that still a challengeable thing?
No. So the good news is try to get them to do it right, but any address, a mailing address, a township will hold up. By the way, so will Bob Reckline. If it is a commonly used nickname. So I don't know what Sandy's real name is. If it's Sandra, Sandy might be short for it. If it's Jennifer and Sandy's just what she goes by, it won't work. So the court will look at common derivatives as the term. So Bob is a common derivative of Robert. So is Bobby. So is whatever. City, borough, and township, again, the mailing address for just that reason, people are confused. The most important piece of this goes back to what Bob put in the prior slide. Don't fix it. I threw a candidate off last cycle entirely because they unnecessarily fixed these townships to include the right township. And so you had somebody who hand wrote over all of them the proper one and threw out 30 signatures on a page time and time again. So don't fix it. Go with what's there if that's what you got.
Thank you. And then the final column in the petitions is the date of signing. This confuses a lot of signature signees that I have come across. People will either put the zip code or their birth date sometimes. So one thing I like to do when I am having someone sign the petition is walk them through column by column. Sometimes they get a little annoyed. They think it's a little too much, but then the minute they tell you, oh, no, I'm good, they mess it up. So always good to help walk them through it.
One other suggestion towards that end, if you are doing it and somebody puts a zip code for the date of signing, write the date below it on a line down. It won't count, but either switch page or do that so the person right below it doesn't copy it. You see this so many times that you see one zip code and then the whole page becomes zip codes because people just write what they see on the line above it. So even if the line above it has a zip code and then you want to put a date and just write 2/6/2021, then what comes next below that will stay in the right format going forward.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Go ahead.
I have a question. I had my hand raised.
Yeah, what's up?
Bob, this is Barbara Carroll.
Hi, Barbara.
I just have a question. How are you guys doing?
Good.
What I've noticed the last 2 cycles of doing petitions is we have a group of young folks who do not sign their name. They print their name. And on their ballot, on their registration, their name is printed. So when it says sign this, sign, they print, and where it says print, they print. Is that going to be acceptable? I know at one point they were challenging it because it was not a signature.
So Barbara, I typically challenge that. If the voter registration card matches that, the judge will typically not throw it out. More often than not, they've actually signed their name when they went to the DMV or got their welfare benefits, or sort of those are the 2 places the systems get the information. And so more often than not, they actually have signed originally and now they're printing, so it gets tossed out. But if it actually matches their card, that's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I saw Kathy put her hand up. We'll take her question real quick. Kathy.
Yeah, I have 2 questions, but it kind of regards the same thing. For the date, is there a specific way you have to do the date, like month, day, year? And can you put 21 instead of 2021? Because we had problems with that before and everybody writes the wrong date. And then if there is a problem with the date, like they put like 1920 or something instead of, does that make all the signatures underneath that invalid?
So let me
Because
answer
when
the
you're
last question
yeah.
first, Kathy.
Okay.
Each line is taken on its own. So you do not get a situation where the prior person knocks you off. So that is not a problem. You can put 21, that is not a problem. You could write the month out, you can tap it in, however you want to do it. The one place this gets really tricky is when you have a year that looks like a month or a date that's there. So if you have 3/21, or this year it's going to be in the period 2/21, that's not enough because that could be February 21. It could be any February in 2021. So there, if it would have to say 2/21/21, 2/21/2021, something like that. But at the end of the day, those kinds of date issues are issues that we will deal with in front of a judge. I would try very, very hard not to have your petition come down to those kind of signatures because depending on the judge we draw, it could go very, very differently.
Right. And the other thing was I've had it happen before where somebody writes the wrong day, like the petition can't be circulated till the 16th and they put the 15th down, or they go out of order and have the number 16 is in front of them, February 16th. Then they say February 15th. So anything below that 15th, I was told was no good.
There was one case where they tried that and it actually won on below and then was reversed by the appellate court.
Okay.
Each line is looked at on its own with one exception. If you see something that is manifestly fraud, you see 20 signatures in the same hand, the other 10 signatures may be tossed off because they will assert that the notary committed fraud. But other than that, you're not going to see that. That kind of mistake no longer throws out all those signatures, although the people who do signature reviews always try.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, can I try this again?
Yes.
Sandy. Okay. The question always comes up, how many strike throughs on a petition can a candidate have? I have heard 3, and then it's tossed out completely. Any ideas about that?
That's just wrong, Sandy. So the answer is it depends on why. If the court sees the same handwriting line after line after line after line after line striking through and changing the names, like the one I talked about before, the Westmoreland County petition, actually it was an Erie County petition where they wrote Erie instead of Mill Creek. And they went through and struck out Erie and wrote Mill Creek in the same handwriting for a page and a half.
Oh.
On the back side, those last 8 signatures where they'd written Mill Creek correctly, we still got tossed out because we were able to successfully prove that the circulator was committing fraud in the circulator statement because they knew they had faked the petition. Other than a situation like that, there is no strict situation, particularly if, let's say, people had zip codes and so they're being struck off for lack of completion as opposed to fraud. They're not going to have a problem with that. They could strike off 29 signatures and leave the 30th alone if the 30th has the right information. Again, if it's a zip code problem as opposed to fraudulent handwriting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. So the signers, like we said, must be registered voters. We discussed that the party does not no longer, if for cross-filing, it does not matter if you're cross-filing. You can have that. You may only, so this question comes up a lot, how many petitions are we allowed to sign, particularly for races that have multiple candidates and multiple seats up? You may sign the number of petitions that you can vote for in that office. So for example, Commonwealth Court, we have 2 seats up this year. You can sign up to 2 petitions for the Democratic nomination and for the Republican nomination. Same thing with school board. If there's 4 seats up that you vote for in the fall, you can sign up to 4 petitions, nominating petitions. Sign their name as it appears on the registration card we just talked about. That's now, you don't, if it's common nicknames, that's okay. Signers must fill in their address, where they're registered, and their date. One exception is nursing homes. Kevin's that's correct, right?
If they can sign it in, if they can fill it in themselves, they should do so.
Okay.
If they can't, they shouldn't. I would also say that, just to give you an example, this even applies to stupid. So for example, Tony Payton was running for state rep in a district that was entirely within the city of Philadelphia. They were gathering signatures at a church in his district, and he was getting them, and there was a long line of people. So to speed the process, somebody on his team put Philadelphia in the date in every box all the way down the page. Now, each person got to the front, they signed their name, they printed their name, they filled in the address. But the Philadelphias and the dates were the same all the way down. They found this out when they got to trial, because all the signatures were in black ink and those were in blue. It was pretty embarrassing. But Tony got thrown off the ballot. He's no longer a state rep because of that. Don't help people unless there's an ADA exception. Now, if you've got an 85-year-old who can't write and they ask their spouse to do it for them, that's better than having them leave it blank. But I will if I'm the person challenging it, I will challenge the two for being in the same hand. And then the people will have to argue to the judge, Your Honor, it's an 85-year-old woman whose 83-year-old husband signed for, completed the line for her. Our odds are I'm losing that, but it becomes something where you've got to have a good lawyer. And again, the goal here is to not pay a lawyer to defend you.
Yes, 100%. And then finally, make sure you use pen, blue or black pen. Do not use pencil. Do not use crazy colors, blue or black pen. Circulators, again, no longer need to have the notarize the circulator affidavit. They just have to sign it and fill it out. Must be the circulator must be present for each signer. That's the whole point of the statement, is that person attesting that I was here for that signature and that I collected it, and they cannot be handed off to others. So make sure you keep that in mind when you do petitions. And we'll get more into that. We'll talk a little more about that later.
Bob,
yes.
Bob, question. For people who have signed an X on their actual voter registration, should we have them sign on the petition in general? Because I've been doing petitions for a number of years. I generally, if they signed an X and can print their name, I don't let them sign the petition, because I figure that that's a challengeable issue. But are they legally able to sign the petition? Their signature is an X on the signature file.
If it matches, Barbara, it will work.
Okay.
People never remember that. And all I will say is it's going to get challenged. And then in the review, it will hold up.
Okay.
But it happens every year. I get one case where I challenge something that there is no way that's a legit signature, and it turns out it is.
Okay. All right, Kev. Thank you.
Thank you. So
okay, guys, we have opened up the chat to me or whatever. They made me a co-host or whatever. If you've got a question about a minute area of law, please put it in the chat to me so Bob can get back to this. I've been as guilty as you guys have been, but let's let him get what he needs to get to.
I appreciate the questions and Kevin's insight. This is the part that I was most nervous about the presentation, was the legal questions. So thank you. One thing, you do not have to complete an entire page in order to turn it in for a petition. If you just want one signature on it and the person signs it, the circulator sends it back, you can turn that in. Make sure that if you have volunteers that are going to be circulators for you, make sure they know not to complete the affidavit, the circulator affidavit, and date it until they are ready to turn it in. If they sign that when they first get it on February 16th and sign the affidavit as February 16th, and then collect signatures for future days, not good, won't work. So maybe that's a trap to just to be aware of. And this is what the statement of circulator looks like. It's pretty basic and simple there. They just have to fill that out once the circulator is done collecting signatures, and they can attest that they were present for those. So here's a quick question break. Does anybody have any questions right now? Real quick, use the hand raise
Okay,
function.
so the petition where it signs at, it says you are duly registered in the above party. Is that what it's saying at the bottom?
Yeah, that I'm a duly registered. So when you do the petitions for cross filing, you will have one petition for registered Republicans and one for registered Democrats.
Okay, okay.
And they
But
shouldn't
now,
have that
if-
statement on the county petitions for those offices.
That's what
Right,
I
that's-
was, okay, that's
Thank
what
It
I
shouldn't
was.
say that. It should skip that clause.
Okay.
Thank you.
Real quick question. I was just wondering if this PowerPoint could be emailed to me. I had another committee woman who couldn't come and was asking if there's any way she could take a look at it.
Yeah, once I make some edits to it, I will and get the okay.
Okay,
I
cool.
will be sending it out.
All right, great. Thank you.
Also,
Welcome.
this presentation is being recorded too, so if people want to see the recording, you know, you can rewatch the recording. Happy to send that around once the thing gets uploaded to our servers.
Thank you.
I
Kathy.
have a question. Do you still have to make an X, like say you only have 10 names on a sheet? Do you have to make an X on the bottom of the front page and then the back page when you only have those 10 signatures? Or can you leave it blank?
As far as I know, you just leave it blank. If I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
mistaken. You don't have to
Is it up
note
to
that that's
the
it.
Board of Elections? Because they gave us a big hard time about that before.
They may not dismiss the petition because it does not have the X. Having said that, there's no harm in doing it, but it's
Right.
not a mandatory thing. If they threw somebody off for that, I would be happy to defend that case.
Okay. And my next question was, I tried to get copies off the websites, like Bucks County websites, and the petitions aren't available yet to
They
circulate?
should be coming shortly if they're not up already.
Okay.
Call them and find out. My guess is they're just playing catch up on a lot of things at this point. But you know, I mean, if you're running for state office, you create your own in real time. The counties have their own, but they're coming online as we speak.
Thank you. And Karen, take last question before we move on.
Yeah, real quick. If there's two people running for Supreme Court justice, am I only allowed to carry one petition? I can't carry for both people running for Supreme Court, correct?
You can carry them both. You can circulate for them both, but a voter who signs on both lines the same day would not count for either one. If they signed on different days, they would count only for the one they signed first. Again, presuming somebody figured it out and challenged them. But you could carry, you can circulate for multiple candidates. You just can't sign for multiple candidates in that race.
Oh, I always was under the impression that I could only, if there was one person running, that I could carry for them, like for Commonwealth Court, that I could carry for two because there are two openings.
You could
But
carry
I
for
can
more if
carry
you want
for
to, but it's
all of
about
the
loyalty,
judges.
I guess. I mean, pick your two favorite candidates, Karen, and work for them.
Okay, no
And-
problem. Thank you.
Karen, often you see them, Karen, and to kind of put that into context, often you see the multiple candidates, multiple things. So like a county chair who has, say, a petition signing party, where they will have all the candidates there, all the petitions there, and everybody, you know, folks choose, you know, what to sign, whichever petition they'd want to. The chair would be the circulator, quote unquote, because they were the ones that the candidates sent them the petitions, they laid them out, they had the petition signing party. So in that instance, the chair would be the circulator and it's all the candidates, but again, you can only sign for as many offices that are up for, spots that are open for the office you're signing for.
And quick question, I don't see anywhere where it says statement of circulator that there is a date on that. Is there a date?
There is not anymore. That is something that we have been unhappy about and asked. I mean, this was a change last year. We've asked them to update it. They have not done so yet. It is not a strict requirement under the code, but we think it should be. The election bar has asked for that.
Good question. Thank you. All right. Moving on, we're going to be talking about some best practices. This is more of the organizing stuff that I'm really good at. So, biggest tip is to use a street list from either Vote Builder or from the county party or from the county board of elections. That way, you know how someone's registered. You know their exact registered address. It's very important to use it. It's beneficial to use a street list. If you plan on doing socially distant door knocking, definitely use a street list. Utilize Vote Builder to check registrations of supporters that you have sign your petitions. Another good practice is walking signers through each column. Again, it seems like it's a bit much, but it'll help cut down on mistakes. If they do make a mistake, make a single strike through and start a new row. No ditto marks used to not be allowed. Kevin, are they still?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Do not use
but I want to clarify the next point about in no abbreviated municipalities. That isn't true necessarily.
Okay.
So if the judge can hear where it is, U period Darby instead of Upper Darby is fine. Lawrence V apostrophe LLE is fine. There are a lot of people who or you know, you'll even see like D-Town and Downingtown. I challenged a bunch of those and lost the case over that.
Okay.
For Downingtown because they go by D-Town. If the judge believes that is a common usage for the location, it's fine for a shortening. But having said that, all things being equal, don't do it unnecessarily.
Yeah.
I would also kind of echo to Kevin's point on this. A big thing with petitions, and I said this to staffs I worked with and candidates, the big thing is to not end up in court, period. So even if you say you put D town, right, and everybody kind of knows you mean Downingtown, right? If somebody takes you to court, that's time, that's resources, right? So play it safe than sorry, and do complete as much as you can, because again, the less you open yourself up for challenges, the better off you can be on that. So that's why we say, if possible, try not to do municipalities, because it's more open yourself up to a potential challenge more so than like you're going to get thrown off. The signatures will be marked as invalid.
Correct, but Jason, don't fix it from D-Town to Downingtown, because if you leave it as D-Town, it is probably going to count, but you may end up in court. If you fix it to Downingtown, it definitely won't count, and you definitely will end up in court. So don't fix it after the fact. Let the voters correct it. Tell the next person, hey, please write it out.
Hey, Kevin, would you put your email in the chat, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Paul, I see your hands up.
Yeah. In the past, Larry Otter actually represented a candidate I was working for. We had people that put in Yardley, which is their postal address, but I live in Lower Makefield Township. And I've been told we can just put in Lower Makefield. There's no space to put an abbreviation for township, and Lower Makefield would be sufficient and it wouldn't be challenged. Is that true?
I absolutely would not challenge Lower Makefield, and I've seen L Makefield survive as well. I wouldn't put Makefield.
Lower Marion Township, we also have the same zip code for Morrisville, Yardley Borough, where they used to accept BORO for borough. And we also have parts of Fallsington or Falls Township with the same zip code.
And Paul, all I will say is this: most of the time the judge will err on the side of permission. The only place you will see a problem is where you have two very similarly named towns, and particularly two very similarly named streets. So they're not necessarily giving a specific address in the district. But having said that, again, as complete as possible in the space you have, but at the same time, you're not going to get banged for what I would call is a really good faith attempt to compliance in completeness of address, of completeness of date, so long as you actually have something close to a complete version of both.
And the other thing that's happened is people put the wrong date on, and the date sequence was not in order in all the lines. And that's another reason I've run into problems with things getting thrown out. Make sure,
100%.
just start a new petition every day. That's the best way I could do to get around it.
That's not a bad idea.
Well, and Paul, I think we will get there in a second, but one of the beauties of this online world is if people are doing their own, you can email it to them and they do a one signature petition with a one signature certification at the back end, and they can do it from their home. That is permitted. It is a ton of paper, but it is permitted.
That's good to know. We're gonna do a drive-by. People are gonna drive by my home and sign it from their car on a clipboard, and we'll wipe it, the pens off and everything.
Nice. When we get to the section about drive, I actually put drive through in our presentation, so I will come back to you, ask for your thoughts. Judy, real quick, Judy Golding.
Yes, this is just, hi, Kevin, and hi, everybody. This is back to Kevin. Just what you just said just now, that people can do this via their computer. They can sign petitions. I mean, I want to sure I heard.
No, you can't sign on your computer.
Yeah.
Bob, am I stealing your thunder with this idea?
Nope.
Okay. So you can email a full page. Judy, you can email a full page to me.
Okay.
I take it at home. I print it out. I sign my name on line 1. I
Ah,
go to the back. I complete the affidavit of circulator, and then I scan it and send it right back to you.
oh, I see.
And now you've got my signature. It's only one vote. It's only one signature, but it's one signature with an attestation and a completion that I have done. And you have just done it by email to me in my house.
I see. So all right. So that's very interesting, because in this COVID creepy environment, that may be something for people to do, actually. I mean,
It is something people are doing in many states. It is the one saving this elimination of the notary thing happened in Act 77 before COVID.
yeah.
It was something that we just got thrown in there as a throwaway, clean up a mess. Nobody needed it type thing, but it
Okay.
ends up being incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something now that I think I need to say just because it's an advertisement we need to put in there. Do not go to court and ask the judge to excuse you from getting signatures. The Green Party did this and the Libertarian Party did this in July, in June and July. We fought it in court. Cliff Levine from Pittsburgh was our lawyer. He did a great job. Some really annoying guy named Jason Henry was our expert witness, and he did a great job as well. But this went to the third. It was one at the trial court, went to the Third Circuit. They even appealed to the Supreme Court, which didn't take it. The reason that there was no Green Party candidate on the ballot was because the Pennsylvania Democratic Party intervened in that lawsuit and fought it and won. We will not support, we would look like hypocrites if we did, saying the legislature could change this, but we won't ask the court to do so. So you got to get the signatures you got to get this year. It's going to be harder, but you got to get them.
Okay. And
Kevin.
just real quick, that the person on this emailing thing, they have to fill out that attestation, attestation or whatever in the back. It's not enough just put their name and address and whatever. They've got to do that other piece as well.
Well, it's only right. They've got to fill out that back page, but you can email it to me, Judy, and I can get my wife and myself and my 2 daughters and send it back with 4 signatures.
Oh.
So again, that's
great. Okay.
But it's just a question of it's a different way of having people do it. But for your committee people who are scared to leave the house, who haven't gotten their vaccine yet, whatever, it's a way for them to do a little bit of work.
That's great. All right. Thank you.
So, yeah, as in terms of hey, how's everybody doing? Yep. And in terms of the legislature making changes, the only change that was proposed, so Senator Hutchinson did send me and Senator Argyle, because we're as the Democratic and Republican respective chairs of state government committee, a bill that would they just sent it Friday night, but it would reduce the number of signatures for county and municipal offices for just this year only to 25% of the legal requirement. That it is unclear whether there are even enough session days for us to move this bill at this point to have it apply this year. We just lost one more today. So it is, like I said, that has been proposed. It does not apply to statewide, and it may not become law. So you should prepare as if the law is going to be the same. But there is discussion about moving a bill to reduce the requirement for county and municipal offices only to 25%. And the bill was sunset at the end of this year. So and I'm also unclear if House Republicans are even willing to move the bill. Senate Republicans just expressed an interest in it Friday night.
Senator, as just a lawyer for the party, I would encourage you to do that if it makes sense as a one-year measure. But obviously, the House has to be willing to go along, and there have to be enough days to get it done.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So look, I think that it's something that we would likely move if it is logistically possible. But I wouldn't want people to plan around it, because it is entirely possible it won't happen. And it is not even proposed that we do anything to change the requirements for statewide offices. All right, I just wanted to throw that in.
Bob.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Senator. Richard, I see you have your hand up. If you can just wait just a couple slides. We have another question break coming up. I just want to get through a couple more things. So common mistakes with petitions: incomplete addresses. Make sure that they fill that out completely. Maiden names, and did they change their voter registration? A lot of people, don't know that they haven't changed their registration to their new address. So they put their new address and they're actually registered elsewhere. So again, that's where street lists and the use of Vote Builder to check your signatures really comes in handy. Suspicious signatures, Kevin alluded or was talking about cases where people were the same handwriting the entire way through. Big no. That will be, they will see that. Spouses cannot sign for each other or their kids. That should be a no-brainer, but a lot of people, I've myself had people like sign, oh yeah, I'll just sign for 6 members of my family. They cannot do that. So make sure you were thinking about that. Some other traps, date issues. We were talking earlier about the if the dates aren't in consecutive order, like you have 2-1 or 2-16, couple rows, and then it goes to 2-15. They can throw out, I believe, the entire petition or just everything below the date, Kevin.
What is the question? I missed it. Sorry.
The consecutive dates for the signature, so it's like 2-16, 2-16, and then 2-15. Will they throw
just
out
the one line? They will just
just that one line. Okay, good.
But having said that, again, there's no harm in switching to a new page.
Mm-hmm.
There's no harm in switching to a new page, particularly if you have somebody who has zip codes and stuff that's hard to copy. If you got another piece of paper, pull it out. All you're doing is killing a tree.
Yep. And again, watch the zip code column in the last column. That always gets people. They always put the zip code instead of the date.
So Bob, I'm going to interrupt one thing because I did say something about affidavits I want to be clear on. Mm-hmm. There still needs to be a candidate affidavit for every race. So we're talking about circulator affidavits here, and that's what Bob and I have been talking about. I got a couple of questions about that. There needs to be a candidate affidavit for every race. Now, in some of the offices, particularly the election board offices, the candidate's affidavit is printed on the same piece of paper because you only need one sheet to do it. And so that's how the counties do it. For those races, you do need the candidate's affidavit. It used to be you would need two affidavits. One is the circulator and one is the candidate. We got rid of the first one for the circulator, but you still need the affidavit for the candidate. And that is a change. And 3 or 4 different people sent that email. So I just wanted, or sent that message. I wanted to address it while we were dealing with common problems.
Yep. Thank you, Kevin. As far as dating the numbers and pages, this applies more to the statewide races. They're going to have a multitude of pages to turn in. Best practice is to wait to number them until you're ready to turn them in. So I helped a campaign and they tried to number the petitions as they went, and it was a mess. So I'd wait. Just a pro tip. Question break. Richard, saw your hand up. What is your question? Richard, I can't, the name's cut off. I can't. There we go.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to go back to the point that Kevin has made about basically it comes down to the number of pages that you end up with. I was pushing the same approach that Kevin talked about, going to a household where you can signatures within that household bubble. People pushed back here saying that the candidate needed to have each page notarized, and that it would be a burden for the candidates if they ended up getting 100 pages instead of 20 to have all those notarizations done. Is that correct?
So that's the law that changed in October of 2019. So it used to be true that was the problem. It is no longer. That changed in Act 77. So now the candidate does not have to, you need to complete the back of every page, but you do not need it notarized. That's only on the candidate affidavit itself.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again, Dick.
Chairwoman Lalonde from Butler.
Hi, my question, it seemed to me you can hear me, right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Last time we did this, that chair people and state committee members are not supposed to carry petitions for Republicans, is that right? Or sign them?
Yep.
Except for cross-filed races. That is what the state rules say. It's not just chair people. Any Democratic office holder under the DNC rules, we only represent Democrats. People like Travis who are cross-filed, you can do it for cross-filed races.
So I can sign or I can carry for someone running for common pleas court in the county?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Sandy.
Okay. I just want a clarification on sending the petitions back through email. This is what I thought I heard, that we send them out, which we've talked about doing here, and then as they're signed, they can
Sorry, you were right. We should not send them back by email. We can mail them back to the office and do that, or you can have them pick it up physically, but it's got to be the original. You were right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
My apologies. You can email them out, but the actual original has to come back.
Yep.
Got it.
I misspoke. That's exactly right. Thank you for catching me on that.
Thank you. Yes, Jay from Elk County.
The page needs to be printed front and back if it's being emailed. Correct. It has to be both sides. It can't be
correct.
One side on one page, one side on the other, correct?
Correct.
Yep, correct. And the tops have to be on the same, like head to head on the same side when you print them out.
Although Bob, the courts will not throw it out if they're not head to head. The courts will throw it out if they're two different sheets of paper.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Patricia, last question before we move on.
Yes, so can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so last year, our county, someone contested ones where a petition was on the back, it was upside down, and that page was thrown out.
I don't know the facts of that case in that court. All I will tell you is it has not been that would not hold up on appeal with a good lawyer. Let me put it that way.
So a judge of election tossed the whole page. So but it would be something that could go on to court and get a better decision.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd have to know the facts, but a petition like that, it wouldn't be a judge of elections that you were presenting it to. You'd be presenting it to the county to process it, or to the state. If the county refused to accept it, if it was the difference between me being on and off the ballot, I would have taken that to court.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Bob, you're muted.
Thank you, Kevin. Sorry about that. Judy, real quick, it's your question, and we got to move on.
Yeah, sure. It goes back to, again, this emailing these petitions out and then getting them back. Could one of you maybe just write something down that is clear, the clear instructions? Because where I'm getting a little bit confused again now is if I email it to somebody and scan it, it's gonna come back in 2 pages. You know, not
no. You email it to somebody. They print it out front and back at home.
Okay.
They then complete it.
Okay.
They can have you pick it up. They can put it in the mail to you, whatever else. You need to get the original signatures back so
Okay.
that you can file the original signatures. But you, rather than have to drop it off at their house, you could email it to them and they could print it. And then they can mail it back to you. And that can work in a 3-week window.
When they print it, it'll come out in 2 pages.
They need to print it front and back.
Oh, I see. So they got to be able to do that. Okay.
Yeah. If
All
they're
right.
not able to print front and back, then I would look into, either dropping it off or mailing it to them.
You could put it, okay, let's make it simpler, Judy, and let's not make it an email. You can drop it in somebody's mailbox. They go out, they pick it up, they take it inside, they complete it, and then they drop it off in your mailbox. Nobody has to have any interhuman interaction, and it gets where it needs to get.
That's perfect. I get that. That's better. Okay. Thank you. All right. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you, Judy. Rick, I see your hand up. We're going to hold on your question just a couple more slides, and we'll be in the final question and answer and the full discussion. So we're just going to move on here and talk about getting petition signatures during a pandemic. We kind of hit on a lot of these points already, but just to re-up, mail a petition to already identified supporters. Take the time between now and the start day of petitions and plan out, especially if you're in a race that only needs 10, 15 signatures, and find those 10 or 15 people in the district and be ready to just mail them or have them pick up or drop off petitions. One of the ideas that we've been discussing is mailing it. So I don't know how doable it is for races that need thousands upon thousands of signatures, but it's at least some. But for these small countywide or for the local races that only need a few, this is a great way to get this done quickly. Just the biggest thing to remember is filling out that statement of circulation on the back. They have to fill that out. And then they have to send it back to the campaign, or you have to come pick it up from them. And a good thing to ask them as well is who else in your household or in your quarantine bubble is a registered Democrat, so you can get as many signatures from one household as you can. A couple drive-up events. Some counties have already done drive-through events for food bank drives, for some other events. Westmoreland's doing a drive-up where folks can come, they park. We'll have a table outside with clipboards, then they'll come up with their mask. We'll have hand sanitizer. We might advertise as bring your own pen and tell people to bring their own pen so they can just sign and go. Just make sure you have masks and hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes. The big issue around that is the pens and touching with the same sheets and stuff. So something to consider as you do it. Make your petition available electronically for the PDF for those races that we can't. So again, this is just mailing them a PDF to print out. So they would have to print it out at home, and they would have to have the ability to print it out double-sided. If they don't, then you would have to send them a petition or drop it off. For the judicial races, each county has their own specific petition and a code on it. So make sure that when you send out petitions or are receiving petitions to print out on your own, that the county is correct. That is the correct county on there.
If I can be clearer on this, I think I just want to add to this. If you are collecting for the statewide races, all the signers in a county have to sign a petition specific to that county. So you need an Elk County petition and a Montgomery County petition and a Philadelphia County petition and whatever you need. And you can't have the Montgomery County person sign the Philadelphia one or not. So for people who collect in person in Philadelphia at the train stations, they'll carry 5 petitions for each of the 5 counties so they can do it. In more rural counties, it may be 1 signature to a page or to a petition for these people, and that's really okay. It is particularly important for some of these where you need to have so many per county. So some of the offices, you have a minimum number in each county. You must have 5 counties with at least 100 signatures or whatever it is. So it is a real challenge to get that 5th county sometimes. So it is important, but what you have to do is be very careful that you're using the right petition for the right county for the multi-county races. And by the way, the same thing is true for state rep and state senator races when you deal with that next year.
100%. Main takeaway from this entire presentation is be organized. I've seen a lot of candidates wait until a couple days into the petition period to start getting their things together, start getting everything ready, start reaching out to people. You should be ready to go as soon as the clock strikes midnight next week or in a couple weeks for the 16th. You should be ready to go. Make as many people that you can think of offhand in your district or in your area that can sign, have those ready to go, a plan to distribute those to people. You need to keep track of your circulators. If you're a candidate and you are going to have 7, 8 people out there circulating for you, make sure you have a spreadsheet or some way to track who is circulating that for you. Because then what you want to do is check in with them regularly to get an update on numbers. A lot of people have, that in my experience, for the people I've worked with, have not done that check-in to see where they're at, and then they're coming up on 3 days to go before they turn it in, and they realize they don't have enough petition signatures. So it's very important to stay on top of everyone and knowing how many that they have. Filing early is ideal. Make sure don't wait until the last day. There's always long lines, especially if you have to turn it in at the Department of State. There's always long lines. So make sure you file early. You can always file an initial batch of signatures and then add on in the future as supplements. And finally, check your signatures before filing. It's always good practice for campaigns to check through and match signatures and addresses through Vote Builder to make sure it's correct. Be ready to go February 16th. Day 1.
I'm just responding to some questions that were asked. If you can, well, I'll wait till you get there. Sorry, I apologize.
No, you're good. Just one more slide. Turn in petitions before March 9th, the due date. Supplemental filings are allowed. You can file initial batch early, then add supplementals to get you to your number. Just to make sure you have them in. Keep track where you stand daily. Verify signatures and registrations as you get to them. So with that, let's first, does anybody have, well, let's just open the floor. Whether you want to share ideas of things that you're going to do to get petition signatures, or if you have a question, let us know. And we'll start with Rick.
Okay, just to be perfectly clear, I think I've heard it enough times that I'm pretty sure what I heard. If we email petitions, blank petitions to folks, and that's a great option for us in rural counties, we need to remind them to print them out back to back, page 1, page 2, before we have them circulate or sign anything. But they cannot email them back to us. We need the original, correct?
Correct.
Correct. And they can be mailed to you, but that puts us at the risk of Louis DeJoy's wonderful system.
Right. Physically mailed, lick and stick a stamp, whatever, do that. But do not email completed petitions back to us because they won't be accepted.
Rick, I agree with that, but I would say this: the lick the stamp thing. I am still waiting on a check that was mailed to my firm in December. Drop it off in a mailbox. Drop it off in a door. That's fine. That would be my recommendation for somehow get the original back.
Right. That's what we're going to recommend. When I said lick and stick, in a normal year, if we could get them back that way right on time, then I'd do that. But we're going to either pick them up or have them. We are going to have a couple of drive-throughs, and they can drop them off there ahead of time. They'll have it in advance if they want to do it that way. But I just wanted to be clear on the do not email completed petitions back to us because we need the original.
Yep. Thank you for clarifying that, because that was, I misspoke and that's not what I meant to say. So. A couple other questions that came in by email. We do not yet know what the filing setup is going to be in Harrisburg. There will be one. There's always been a filing center. There still will be one, but the COVID restrictions are going to make it more complicated. They did that, and we did that in February and March too, though. So I mean, somehow I guess we filed before COVID really blew up, but it continues. But there will be a filing center. The same thing goes for the lottery. There will be some form of a lottery. How they do it, how they deal with it, they haven't figured out. And obviously the secretary who has to make those decisions is no longer, will no longer be the secretary in a week, and the acting secretary will have to make that decision. Trying to think what else. Anyway, there's some other, you want to take some other questions, Bob?
Yep, sure. We'll go with Paul next. He's the next one to stand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, one of the things that's worked best for me for nominating petitions is one of those text sending programs, True Text or Hustle. I had 60 people show up my house to sign nominating petitions 4 years ago.
Wow.
That's more than I can do in a day.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
When I was running as a Bernie Sanders delegate, I just passed it up. Some of them are cheaper than others and better than others, but I mean, that is the fastest way right now to get out to people. Mm-hmm. If you have a text, number to send it where and where your drive-through is going to be.
Yep, definitely. Thank you, Paul. Patricia.
Yes, hi. As far as the judicial races are concerned, if members of state committee endorse, if there's an endorsement of any candidates, what will happen with any other petitions that would be circulated or potentially be circulated to unendorsed candidates?
The endorsement is only a recommendation. They can still run. They can still circulate.
Thank you. That's why I never understood what the actual a suggestion versus a rule not support anyone other than the endorsed candidate.
No. So in November, you may not, as a state committee member, support anybody other than who the Democratic Party has voted for in the primary, who appears on the ballot as the Democrat. That is our rule. The endorsement process pre-primary is a recommendation from state committee to everybody, but every Democrat may do it under the state party bylaws.
Now,
Jason, am I stating that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no penalty. There's no penalty for not supporting the endorsed candidate in a primary. It is merely a recommendation. There are some county party organizations who take it more or less seriously, but as a statewide party, we don't. There's no penalty for not supporting the endorsed candidate. We do require state committee people to support the nominated person who's won an actual election in the primary, and you can't support a Republican or a independent against the Democrat. But you may, in the primary, it's just a recommendation, and like I said, different counties take it more or less seriously.
Well, I know that in the past, we've been able to take petitions to Harrisburg to the state party office to drop them off there for statewide candidates to pick up and file in Harrisburg. But I didn't know whether we never took anyone but the state party's endorsed candidates petition there.
That's different. I don't know that we'll be leveraging the state party. We have to have some discussion about whether we'll leverage the state party resources, like using the state party offices for non-endorsed candidates.
COVID may prevent us from doing that even this year. I mean, let's be fair.
If it's not COVID, I'm not certain that. I think if we have an endorsed candidate, we probably will not, as a state party use the apparatus of state committee to support anyone other than the endorsed candidates. but that doesn't mean that you couldn't drop them off at a law firm or somebody else's place.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Thea, if I'm mispronouncing that, please let me know.
Oh, you pronounced it correctly.
Awesome.
So good evening. This is my first meeting, so I'm very excited to get this information. My question I also put in the very informative too, so very, very good.
Thank you.
I did put my question in the chat as well, but where do you get the petitions for the judicial races?
So if it is for the statewide judicial, like Supreme, Superior, Commonwealth, the candidates will be able to generate PDFs of their petitions off of the Department of State website. When that will be, don't know, have an exact date yet, but it's going to be very soon.
Okay. All right, great.
So
Thank you.
Thea, you get them from the candidates themselves.
Okay. All right, so she'll have to go in and she'll have to print them off. Okay. And then I guess it should be obvious, given that you have to have a different petition for each one of the counties, then all of the X number of county petitions will be available online.
So Thea, when you complete the questionnaire with all the information you need, it generates a 136 page, because it gives you the candidate's affidavit as well, 136 page PDF that you then print out, and that will include one front and back for every county. It will include the 1-page candidate's affidavit. So that prints out that one large file, and then you have to print them and make your own copies.
Okay, excellent. And then can I ask one other question, and that is with regards to the candidate's affidavit. Is it only one affidavit for the candidate that's needed for all of the petitions that they turn in?
One candidate, even if one affidavit per office. If you were running as a cross-filed candidate, you do need 2.
Okay, and that's regardless of whether we send them in waves, right? So if I send them a group in,
they will not accept
week 2 and week 3.
So they will not accept the first batch without the affidavit. Once the affidavit has been filed, you then file supplementals. In a normal year, you take the supplementals to a different line where they just take the supplementals and tack it in, because they don't, when you go to file the first time, you need the signatures, you need the check, you need the affidavit, you need the statement of financial interest, you need all these pieces.
Mm-hmm.
When you come back with supplementals, it's just supplemental signatures. Everything else is already done.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you entertaining my questions.
Thank you, Thea. Diane.
Hi, thank you. I was just going to give some best practices and some, some suggestions. Yes, so a little change from the questions. All right, so we already have all of our stations planned out for this coming petition signing. And because of COVID, what we're doing is I'm going to be the carrier, just me. I've already had COVID, so I'm safe right now, rather than asking all of our people and having a whole bunch of people there. So I volunteered to be it. I'm focused on the statewide candidates, the running for the judicial position. So I'm focused on that. I've organized all of my locations. So I took advantage in order to do this and not spend money. I was able to get some city buildings that were open to me. I have to keep the number of people that I allow in there. And since it's just me waiting for people to come in, that number will stay low. I also have 2 drive-through locations that are really prominent, and I'll be there with my car. So if it's a little cold, I'll be able to pop into my car, but I'm going to do drive-through. So I have a mixture there. But the way I'm advertising this, and we used this last year during the Biden signs, and it worked really, really well. In the paper, in all of our papers here, there's a things to do section, and it's free. I advertised every single week last year for the Biden signs, and I'm advertising this. So I'm advertising petition signing. I'm listing all the locations, and I have it already planned out when my ads when this needs to be into the paper. I'm doing 2 weeks prior, so they'll see it 2 weeks in a row to help remind them. It will list all the locations, and it will list everything that they need to know. And with free. And the other thing that we're taking advantage of, and we got this idea last year, we can't afford a Democrat headquarters. We don't have the money for it here, but we can do a Google phone number. Google phone numbers are free. So we set up a Google number, and when you call it, it says, welcome to, thank you for calling Mercer County Democrat Party. We're on another line. We'll get right back to you. Actually, all it does is rings then on my phone, sends me a text, and I can call the person back as if you called an office. I have that number in every one of those things to do when I'm advertising this. And I also put in there that will help you with mail-in voting questions, anything like that. So I can squeeze all that into this things to do for free. Our phone number, voting, how to vote, all of that, the locations, doesn't cost me anything, and it will be in all of our papers. So we already have it planned out. We have 6 stations already planned out, and I am the station person. That way I'm kind of safe right now because I still have the antibodies, and I'll still do social distancing and all that. But that's our plan, and we will be a carrying county for every judge that is endorsed. Mercer County, rocking it. Anyway, that's my best practice here. If anybody has a question on the Google phone or anything like that, let me know, because I'm the one that run it, and it's free. Okay, thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Diane, for sharing that, and very glad that you were doing well after.
Oh yeah, I just
COVID.
lost taste and smell, so nothing has any flavor anymore. That's all that happened to me.
Well, I'm glad that was it. We're very.
And the
thankful.
best part is you can even have some of Bob's cooking now.
Oh yeah, I can't taste a thing, Bob. I couldn't taste a thing right now. Nothing.
I use Home Chef, so it's the cooking's okay.
I think Anne's next. She's been very patient.
Yep, Anne, how are you? Oh.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yep,
can see
can
me.
hear you.
Okay, pretty raw at this, pretty new at this. I had a question about the circulator affidavit. I thought I had it figured out. I'm circulating, I sign it. But it threw me when we email it to someone, and then let's say, Bob, you have 4 people in your household, you have them all sign. Then what is it that you're signing on the back before you send it back to me? Are you then filling out as a circulator?
Correct.
Yeah, whoever.
And it's not an affidavit, Anne, just to be clear, although we still use that term because it used to be. It's a circulator statement, whatever it is. But
right.
But the circulator statement is only one person should take the piece of paper, put it in front of their friends to sign, and bring it back. That one person is the one who signs the circulator statement. You can hand it off to 3 other people who put their hands on it before it gets back to the Secretary of the Commonwealth. But those 3 other people should not give it to new people to sign. Only one person collects the signatures. That's the person that signs it. So if you were to mail it to me, and I were to go out and get my 4 people in my household to sign it, and then I mailed it back to you, I would sign it before it went back. You never sign a thing. You give it to the candidate.
I see, okay. Okay, so it would be a clean petition to begin with.
It's a clean petition you give me. I get 4 signatures. I give it back to you. You don't add anything else to it.
Got it, okay. I was confused. Thank you for that. That's all I had.
Thank you, Anne. Appreciate it. Nancy, you were next. And then Sandy. Oh, I think we just lost. Nancy, are you there? Okay, we'll go to Sandy.
Okay, just a couple ideas to get petitions signed. We are going to get, we have one guy who has an RV. We're using his RV and other times maybe using an SUV. And we're going to have signs on the side or a banner, and we'll be advertising it. And then we'll be going out to places that we know people will be, like food stores seem to be doing pretty well for people feeling safe to go there. And we'll have music playing, maybe some free chocolate or candy. And a bunch of us will be running out with our clipboard and pens that we will let the people pick out, and then they keep it when we're done. Okay, another idea is we are going to try to stand at food banks and have voter reg and petition forms there, and as churches release on Sundays. So there's a couple things. I liked a lot of the ideas I heard today. There's something that might work for a few of you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for those, Sandy. Appreciate it.
So Sandy, the only thing I would suggest on the food bank part of it is we have to be very careful to not give people things to sign. So what you can do is you can have a food bank where people can get, or you can have a drop-off food bank, even better, where people drop it off and they sign. But at the end of the day, what we can't do is give people something in exchange for signing this petition. Now, that doesn't mean you can't co-locate it with the food bank or co-locate it with the church, but it can't be that you have to sign a petition as the price of getting food from the food bank, for example.
Oh, I'd never say that. I'd never ask anybody that.
I
but
understand.
Thank you.
I know you wouldn't, but I just want to be clear for the other people who are on the call that they don't hear you saying something you weren't.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Nancy.
Yes, I'm sorry I was clumsy with my tech skills.
No worries.
Two things. One, back to Rick's comment at the beginning of this Q&A, that people whom I'm going to characterize as my sub-circulators, that is, I'm a committee woman, so I'm going to be a circulator, and I may ask several people to enroll their families as well as themselves, that the signature on the back, the affidavit is not completed until you're finished with the petition. You don't receive it by email or whatever and fill out the back and then start to fill out.
Nancy, let me just say one thing. I think you meant this. The petition on the back of the page should be completed by the sub-circulator, not by you.
Right.
And so you give it to the sub-circulator gets their family members to do it.
Right.
The sub-circulator then completes the back of the page, returns it to you. Right. You aren't actually the circulator. I would call you the circulation manager.
Okay.
And the circulation manager then delivers them where they need to go, but the actual circulator is the person who is signing the back of the page.
Right, after they have achieved
however many signatures they're going to get on it.
Right.
However many signatures are going to be on it.
Right, however many days that takes. So I thought your point about not having the affidavit have a different date than the petitions, but then there isn't any date, I just remembered, for the affidavit. Oh dear, okay.
We want, those of us who like to challenge things want to use that as a fraud detection device. Having said that, from a pure circulation standpoint, it makes life easier because it's not, we are unable to detect that mistake. I saw Greg Hayes's people make it repeatedly a year ago. It was clear, but I didn't have any proof of that.
Right.
Oh well, I got Greg Hayes on some other stuff.
Okay. The other question I have is maybe too local. In Philadelphia, our boards of elections are up for election, as well as statewide and judicial candidates, etc. Do those election board candidates have to complete the considerable affidavit information that you described for other candidates?
Yes. It's not that considerable, but yes, they do. There's an affidavit. It's printed on the back in Philadelphia. It's a one-page form, front and back, and they actually print the affidavit on the back of the form.
This is to be a candidate and to have their petition signatures credited to their request to be on the May ballot.
So what will happen, again, this is very local, but what happens in Philadelphia is you get essentially a 2-page form, front and back. On the front of it are the places for the signature. It's a sort of a multi thing you fold up, but on the front of it are the places for the signature. And on the back, there is a statement of the circulator, which you fill in. Then there's the candidate's affidavit, which you basically just fill out the office you're running for, sign, and put your address on it. But you need a notary to stamp it, and you need to put your ward and division on it. And then there's a expense reporting requirement you have, or you could fill out the one page on the back that is the waiver of the expense reporting, and that gets notarized as well. And again, all of that's on one, essentially one front and back piece of paper in Philadelphia. It's oversized, but that's all there because you only need 10 signatures on the one side.
That's a lot of work for some.
It is. And unfortunately, it's all required by state law.
So we have to get, if I'm filling, let's say, 3 positions on the election board, I've got to get 3 petition documents notarized.
Right. You actually have to get 3. You have to get 3 petition documents notarized twice. So what you would do is you would go out and get the signatures for those people.
Right.
Get the 10 signatures on the front side for all 3.
Right.
Then you fill out the statement of the circulator on the back.
Right.
And then you need to get your candidate to take that same paper to a notary and fill out both of the affidavits on the backside, both the statement of candidacy and the waiver of the expense reporting, and get the notary to stamp them both. And unfortunately, we don't have an exception for that. That would also require a legislative solution, and there doesn't seem to be an appetite for that. At this point, I think it would be even worse than not doing it because they'd have to reprint and redistribute.
Thank you, Counselor.
I wish it wasn't so, but we're stuck with it. That's a bill that should have gotten passed last year. The Republicans were refusing to pass anything.
It is painful for people who are, shall we say, eligible or likely to serve as election board officers.
Agreed. And I wish that, let me put it this way, Nancy, you should call up Senator Street and suggest they change that. I'm not sure what we could get rid of, but I love the idea.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. We're gonna take one last question and then we will wrap up. Judy.
Hi, guys. All right, sorry about that. This is actually a follow-on with Nancy's. So I just want to be clear about this because I got a little bit confused. So on these election boards now, they've got their petitions that they will do, which is 10 signatures or a little bit more than that. But is it a separate document, this affidavit that they fill out, and that's what gets notarized? Because I thought you'd said the petitions no longer have to be notarized.
Judy, you live where?
Philadelphia.
Okay, so in Philadelphia, on the back of the election board petition,
yeah,
there are 4 little boxes, each of which are about the size of an envelope on top of each other.
Oh, okay.
The first says statement of circulator.
Okay.
It no longer needs to be notarized.
Okay.
Then it says candidate's affidavit. That is an affidavit and it has to be notarized.
Ah, okay. All right.
Then below that, there's a thing that says waiver of expense account reporting affidavit.
Yeah.
That has to be notarized.
Okay.
And then at the bottom, there is a little box that you fill out that's just a pretty thing saying which ward and division it's in. That's not required.
Right. And all right, so let me just go back one more. And you just have to do that once. Is that it? And then you
correct.
Okay. So they got
so if you have a candidate, if you have somebody who has multiple pages for circulator petitions,
right,
you only need the affidavits once each.
Wait a minute. Once each for each page.
There's the candidate's affidavit and the waiver of expense account reporting affidavit. So it used to be you'd have to get each page notarized 3 times.
Got it.
Now you only have to get it done twice, but you still have to get it done twice.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a candidate running for another office, you have to file a candidate's affidavit. You have to file your expense report with you. It's just done as separate documents.
I see. Okay.
To make things easier in Philadelphia, the county board has printed them all on the same page. And I think that's true in a lot of other counties for these election board offices. They're all printed on the same piece of paper.
Okay.
But those other 2 affidavits still are affidavits, and hopefully we can make them go away.
Okay. And then real quick, because Bob, I heard you say something about with the pens and, if you're at a home, you're at a food bank or whatever. If we have, I'm thinking of getting a bunch of pens, and as they sign it, I'm just going to give them the pen.
That's an option too.
That's okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that is a de minimis expenditure. We're not, and in fact, there's been some litigation over that in other states, believe it or not, during COVID, and they said that was okay.
We don't have to report that or something, and the payments, but okay, great, excellent, thank you. That's great.
Awesome. Thank you, Judy. Well, everybody, we've made it to the end. I just want to thank you so much. I will drop my
still here. I think he's still here. I just want to call out Caleb Buzzard. That's what you get for being a 17-year-old super volunteer who's getting to vote in their first election in May and getting to circulate and figure out how to do it and how to sign his first petition. We just want to recognize you. But I do have a message for you from Representative Pizarro. If you screw this up, you're toast. So, but thank you for joining us. And Caleb, thank you for being here.
I think he jumped. I saw him on earlier, but he was on.
Hey,
I'm
Bob.
dropping my email address. Yes.
I just wanted to thank Kevin, Bob, and James. This was very informative for me. I'm a first-time candidate, so I'm a little intimidated at times on the paperwork part. Thank you.
It's a lot, but we're here to help you get through it.
Travis, if you want to hang around for a second after we're done with this, give me a minute after we turn off the recording. I'd love to have a minute with you too.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Have a good night. And I will get this presentation out once I make some edits. So stay tuned next couple days. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bob,